We consent.
Hey, today we're talking with Marine veteran David Pere from Military to Millionaire. David, you got some great things going on. A lot of real estate stuff going on. You've written a book, got the website, mastermind, bunch of stuff to cover. Let's go back to the beginning where it all started when you were in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, brother. I joined in 08. As your typical, like, grew up in Arkansas. I wanted to leave Arkansas. I had no idea what I wanted to do for school, no scholarships because I putzed around in high school, and the military is a great option for leaving small towns without having to spend money. And so joined the Marine Corps and thought I was going to do 4 years, get out and go to school. And, first 4 years, I saw a whole bunch of different countries. I was in Japan, deployed, all the good stuff, a bunch of different places. And I loved it. And I still had no idea what I wanted to study for school. So I stayed around, and then stayed around for 13 years. And I guess I technically EAS'd about 9 months ago. Ooh, no, 8 months. I don't know. About a year ago. Mm-hmm. I went on Skill Bridge. A week will be a year. So.
Oh, did you? So Skill Bridge has been coming up quite a few times here recently on the podcast. Talk about what your Skill Bridge experience was.
Yeah, I did. So I heard they're cracking down a little bit on it, and they want to stick to like the pre-approved programs, but at least technically, and I think it's still the case, but what I did was you could just get your commander to sign off. So as long as there was like a decent program and thought you were going to have success and it was something beneficial, if your commander approved it, then you could go and do a one-off. And so I did a one-off internship with a local real estate team here in my hometown, and just selling houses and stuff. And so I just worked with them to help them out for like 4 months. The ironic thing is that I was doing that, and at the time I was doing that, I had 2 different interns working with me on the platform through SkillBridge. So it was kind of a weird game, but SkillBridge, if you can take advantage of it, I mean, it's a phenomenal opportunity, especially if you're able to do it in a way, you keep your BAH at wherever you're stationed. And so, like, I was stationed in San Diego, and then I did the last 4 months on SkillBridge in Missouri. And so I was still getting $3,200 a month or whatever in BAH while I was not paying that much anymore. So it was nice.
Interesting. Now you talk some about house hacking, and early on in your Marine Corps experience, you were able to house hack. What was that all about?
Yeah, house hacking is, well, honestly, it's my favorite to this day. It's my favorite way to get into real estate. And it's super accessible, especially for service members. And it's, you can do, I've seen people do it with like a single family where they rent out bedrooms to other service members, like young officers will, like one lieutenant will buy a house and the other lieutenants will all rent from them. And it's this bachelor pad. But house hacking in the simplest form is you buy a duplex, triplex, or a fourplex, and you live in one unit, you rent out the others. And the reason it's so powerful is you're going to have to spend money to live somewhere anyway, right? So let's say we'll use San Diego because it's super expensive and everyone tells me you can't do it there. And I'll use my buddy Brian. You get $3,000 a month in housing allowance. You're expected that you're probably going to be spending about that much to live somewhere. So you're spending $3,000. And he buys a fourplex, and it's like a $1.2 million fourplex. So it's super expensive. And everyone tells me you can't do that. He's a single E5, single sergeant. And he buys this thing 0 down with the VA loan. And then he rents 3 of the units, and then he's single. So he actually rents 2 of the bedrooms in the unit that he's living in, which is a 3-2 to people as well. And he ends up pocketing $600 a month from the rent after all of his expenses. And then he's also saving the $3,000 a month of BH that he would have been spending to live somewhere. So he's essentially, his tenants are paying down $1,500 to $2,000 worth of his mortgage every month while he's living for free in a house and pocketing $36,000 a year in BAH tax-free. Like, just a huge way to like start your journey in real estate. Cause you can, when I did it, I went from paying like $550 a month plus utilities to live in a 2-1 apartment to paying, I think it was like $175 a month after utilities to own a duplex. And so I slashed my living expenses by $400 a month. And then when I moved out, it's paid me every month since then.
Yeah. And like the key to that is on the GI Bill, a fourplex is the max number of single family units you can have and still buy using your GI Bill. And you do have to plan on living in one of them.
Yeah, the VA will go up to yeah, fourplex, and but which is super cool because you can get in for zero down. So, I mean,
Yeah.
so far the craziest one that I think I've seen, and I'm not going to go and tell everyone like this is what you should do, this is the model you should follow, but there was a captain who I introduced to my roommate at the time who was a lender, and he bought a duplex on Venice Beach. Like literally you go to Muscle Beach, you walk across the street and you're hitting his house for $1.93 million, zero down as an active duty man. And pretty crazy loan, but I mean, ultimately he bought it in 2020. So, I mean, it's done just fine going up in value in LA County, but he was living for, I mean, I think he was still spending a little bit of money out of pocket for the BAH, but he was still saving money to own this. I mean, there's not a whole lot of better locations than like on Venice Beach in LA County. I mean, if you're going to bank on appreciation, that's somewhere I would bank on appreciation.
I'm not going to go down in value anytime.
Yeah, when your neighbors have like NDAs signed for their address, so nobody knows where they live because they're all famous.
That's hilarious. And and you mentioned the one duplex where each one of them was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath arrangement. So you could have 3 different people living in one of them, or like you said, your buddy rented out the other 2 rooms and he was in one room by himself.
Yeah.
So, that your first experience was with house hacking was buying a fourplex like that. As time goes on, the rest of the time you're in Marine Corps, you ended up getting orders down to Hawaii.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. I was stationed there. I tried to buy a house there, but at the time that I moved there, the VA loan still had a limit to how much you could purchase before you had to put 25% down over anything over that. And so we kept getting outbid in Hawaii, which is a bummer because I would have loved to have owned a house there, but we lived on base there, and I just invested still in Missouri because I had a team there and had kind of gotten my feet wet in real estate. So I figured, why change things up? This is working.
Yeah. And while you're in Hawaii, you're able to buy another property back in the US, like in the Missouri area.
Yeah. I bought, let's see. So I had, my first purchase was a duplex. Then I bought like some vacant land that was next to our primary residence. And then while in Hawaii, I bought a 10 unit. I took over a lease option on a big 40 unit, like mixed use building, but that ended up not really working out. So I broke off the lease option, and I think I bought 1 or 2 more duplexes before we left Hawaii. So I think I had like 2 units when I got to Hawaii and 15 or 16 when I left Hawaii.
Wow. So still acquiring real estate back stateside, or excuse me, back in the mainland.
Yeah.
In Hawaii. I don't want to piss anybody off there. But so as you progress farther down the road, acquiring more and more properties, you have like, you're saying now you have like 100 units or 100 different family units. Is that where are you at now?
Yeah, so I've got, let's see. So if we break it down, I'm just over 100 units that I have a controlling interest in, or actually would consider myself to be a partner on. So I've got, I'm like a 1/3 member of an LLC that owns a 40 unit hotel and a 23 unit apartment and a 15 unit apartment. Then I'm a 50/50 member on another 4 units with a friend. And then everything else I own myself. And that's, another 20-25 units personally. And then I've also invested in 2 much larger like multifamily deals where I'm a general partner. It's like another 800 units, but it's I have like a 1/3% ownership, so I don't really count those in my portfolio because I couldn't make a decision on them if I wanted to without a whole lot of other votes going my favor.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, hold that thought. We're gonna take a quick break. Be right back. Right back talking with Marine veteran David Pere with from Military to Millionaire. So, David, you mentioned the VA loan and the zero down, and something changed in the last couple of years with the VA loan. Used to be you had the county, you had that county limit max price you could use your VA on, and you had to pay 25% of anything over the 4.7. Like almost one number, the biggest number was like 417 for the longest time.
Yep.
And so that's changed. So now there's not really a limit on on the value of the house. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, not on your first use, and then not if you restore your entitlement. So it gets kind of confusing, but essentially, your first purchase you can qualify for. There's no limit to how much you can buy zero down, as long as you qualify from a debt to income standpoint, credit standpoint, whatever. So whatever the bank is willing to give you, which again is why like a triplex or a fourplex actually can be really beneficial, because on a single family house you have to personally qualify for the entire debt to income ratio, but on a fourplex you can count 75% of the presumed market rents for the units that you're not going to live in. So the other three units, if they all rent for $1,000 a month, then 750, so 15, 2250 a month of that income you could count towards your income, and then you can qualify for a more expensive mortgage because of that. And so your first use, no limit. Where it gets kind of confusing for people is after your first use, if you, let's say you bought a house in Missouri for $200,000 and then you move to San Diego, well, your second use, you're going to fall under that county loan limit again, unless you do what's called like a one-time restoration of benefit, meaning you sell or refinance the first house you bought on the VA loan, so it's not under a VA loan anymore, and then you can restore your benefit, and now you don't have a limit again. So I know I have a friend who's bought 4 houses with the VA loan all at once, but the vast majority of people don't buy like 4 houses with that small price range. So after you own 1 or 2, you're going to start hitting that limit. And yeah, 417 for the longest time, that was an amount. I think now I'd have to go and double check, but I think it's over 620. It might even be 640 is like the minimum across the nation limit. And then, certain zip codes are, like Hawaii is obviously a lot higher than that, in San Diego. And so they adjust that limit based on cost of living.
Huh. Wow. Where's the best source to go to find that limit if somebody wants to find out?
I would just go to the VA's website. So if you just go to va.gov, they've got, most all of the information, but they're going to be the most accurate.
Okay. All right. So you started with house hacking while you're on active duty. You started acquiring additional properties while you're still on active duty. You got to the point where you left active duty. You're still in the reserves, but at what point were you able to walk away from being on active duty because you figured out that, hey, I'm onto something here, and you've continued to grow your portfolio?
Yeah. So I re-enlisted the last time in math in public. It was probably 2019. I get no, it would have been 2017. Sorry. In Hawaii, re-enlisted, and I had at the time just kind of gotten started. I had 10 or 15 units, and I was like really on the fence about whether I was going to re-enlist that time. But I realized, like, hey, if I get out right now, I'm going to have to go get a W-2. I'm definitely not financially free. This thing is great, but it hasn't, like, I'm not there yet. So I re-enlisted. I did the next 4 years. And I was really kind of hoping that I would find that passion again for the military. But, when I first joined, I was, I went to Afghanistan, I was in Japan, I went through all these cool schools, I was doing all this awesome stuff, and I loved it. And then I found out that in the Marine Corps and most services, from what I've gathered, they do this thing where you get promoted and your job becomes a whole lot less fun. So my last tour, I was working out of a skiff, right? So no windows, no cell phone, couldn't even check Gmail. And for like 2 years, I didn't get to go to the rifle range. I went to the pistol range once in 2 years. That was the only thing that I did that wasn't in the office. In 2 years, the only day that I wasn't in the office was the pistol range for one morning. And I hated it, right? It was just the most like thankless, unpassionate job. And so when I got there and I was like, wow, this sucks. I'm not enjoying the military anymore. Like, I'm just not doing the fun stuff that I want to do. I started really thinking about what would it take for me to be done, right? And the number in my head at the time was I need $5,000 a month. If I get $5,000 a month coming in, then I can move back to Missouri and do whatever the heck I want. And so I really started focusing on that. And then this whole pandemic thing happened, and all of a sudden the Marine Corps is like, for 6 months I was on like 1 week on, 1 week off essential shifts. And so I was like, well, all right, now I've got a week at a time. Every other week I get to work on my business. And so I started really working on that. And when it came time for me to do my re-enlistment, I sat down and I was looking around and I was like, man, I'm making more money every month doing what I want for myself than I am in the Marine Corps, including BAH. So finally realized like, okay, if I'm done, if I quit, I don't think I'm gonna have to get a job again. I'm still really hesitant to say that I'm like financially free, because I know that I'm still at like that point where if something happened, it could still, I'm not far enough along that I'm like, incapable of retracting back to needing a job. But I don't know, 8 months off active duty, and I'm paying more in payroll than I was making in the military, and haven't had to work a job yet. So it's not going too bad yet.
Yeah. And so you started to pivot from there over into, you started from military to millionaire, basically talking and promoting, pass along the lessons learned of your, what you've done in real estate to other military members.
Yeah, in 2018, so I had a journal from when I was deployed, and I thought it'd be cool to write a book about, like what normal people do in Afghanistan, because everybody's got, all the SEALs have books, and all the guys with cool stories have books, but there's no like, this is what the Lance Corporal in Afghanistan saw, like, So I thought it'd be funny to write that book, and I realized nobody knows who I am, so it would never sell, and it would just be like I wrote a book for myself. So I started a blog with no idea what it would turn into, just kind of writing, to learn how to write. And I didn't know what to write about. So I just kind of started documenting whatever I was learning. So if I wanted to learn about tax liens, I would make myself write an article about tax liens, because that makes me research it more. And it turns out that the From Military to Millionaire, or Military Millionaire, like name is very catchy. And people just kind of started, like, one day I kind of looked up and was like, wow, I got like 1,000 people following along on this little journey of mine. This is cool.
Yeah.
And then it just took off. I mean, we went from like 7,000 to 45,000 members in a Facebook group in maybe 15 months. And we went from, it was just like all of a sudden things just started to grow. And I realized then and there, like, as I'm doing all this with real estate and people are asking for help, I was like, wow, this is not only is this fun and way more fulfilling, and I'm helping a ton of people and whatever, but this is my chance to, give back. But also it can be quite lucrative, right? Like YouTube pays me for some videos. And so it's like, I make money having fun helping people without having to like charge exorbitant amounts of money. Like, it's just fun, and I'm like, man, I feel aligned while I do this. I should probably do more of this.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's the name? You did actually end up publishing a book.
I did, yeah. And I'm the worst marketer ever for it, but I did finally start keeping it in my drawer. So it's called the No B.S. Guide to Military Life. And it's, it's applicable. There's a ton of stuff in there for anyone, but I wrote it with the idea that, like, man, if I was 18 and I knew what I knew now, then I would be so much further along than I am, because I, screwed up did all the normal Marine Corps financial mistakes for the first like 7 years I was in. And so I basically just wrote the book as like, man, okay, if there's one thing that I would love for every service member to hear when they're first joining the military, let's put it all into a book and hand it to them. So it's like a chronological written out, like, hey, here's the first thing you should do after boot camp. And gotten pretty good feedback so far. It's kind of weird because, it's hard to tell how many books you've sold with like the way Amazon does stuff. So I'm kind of flying blind, but it's kind of weird because somebody will read a book and then they'll send me a picture of them having bought like 20 copies for their unit. And that's happened 10 or 15 times. And so I think it's at least somewhat hitting the mark, because people will read it and then buy a whole bunch of copies for everyone in their unit, which is really cool. So,
yeah, that is cool. And so also tell us about From Military to Millionaire.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a platform to help service members and vets and their families learn how to build wealth, right? So through real estate, entrepreneurship, personal finance. I basically just talk about anything and everything that I'm learning. It's totally free. There's a Facebook group, an Instagram, a TikTok, a YouTube channel, a podcast, a blog, some guy with a beard who runs his mouth all over the place, and for some reason people take him seriously, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And if you want to take it a step further, you also have a mastermind, right?
True. Yeah. So the one thing we do that is kind of a hidden behind a paywall, I mean, it's still super affordable, but we have a community, and so the whole platform is open to anyone, right? If you're a dependent or you're a family member, totally fine. We welcome you all. But the mastermind is specifically for people who either are serving or have served actively in the military or reserves. And we did that because we realized with the mastermind, like the community is the most powerful piece. So it's like if every single person in this group is or was a service member, then we've already got one huge step towards community figured out because we're all going to get along. And that's geared towards real estate. And so we have like 3 weekly group calls and small squads and accountability and stuff. So we've got 166 members right now. And I started it because I just wanted a community of people that were serious. So I was like, well, if I charge people a little bit of money every month to be here, then I know that they're serious enough to actually show up. Because I'd been in free masterminds that all fell apart. And boy, was it has surpassed all of my expectations. And at this point, it's so good, or I enjoy it so much that when people reach out to me for mentorship, I'm like, just join this thing because you'll get my time one-on-one. We'll be on group calls all the time. But I can't keep up with the requests for one-on-one phone calls. So it's this community is like, look, if I can't answer your question, there's 100 people in here who can. So it's cool. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So you got like 160 some folks in your mastermind group.
Yeah, everything from I think our lowest rank, unless he got promoted, is an E3 to I don't know if he pinned a star, but we've got a couple full birds, but I think one of them might have pinned a star last year. So pretty wide gauntlet of people. And in the group, rank doesn't matter. There is no, everybody's just Dave. And so you might have a Lance Corporal giving a colonel, advice on crypto or whatever, because everyone's got different strengths. So it's cool.
Wow, that's awesome. And so where do we find From Military to Millionaire?
Honestly, at this point, I think I've done my job right. So if you Google Military Millionaire, it'll pop right up.
Awesome. That's great. So what are some of the things, like if you could go back to when you were an 18-year-old PFC private, what are some of the things that come to mind? So if you're talking to some of those young kids that are brand new in the military, what are some of those lessons learned that you really want to push their way?
The first thing would be that the thrift savings plan, put as much money as possible into it when you start. If I had maxed that out the first 4 years I was in and never touched it again, I would have more money in there now than I do. And I put 10 to 15% in there for 13 years. And it's just, you can't beat those first few years as far as compounding. So if you just put everything you can afford to put in there right off the bat and let it ride, then now that your retirement down the road is taken care of, now you can afford to take some risks with investing and stuff, because hey, look, if I buy this house and it doesn't work out, my retirement's already good, so I don't have to worry about. But I would say, TSP, don't buy a brand new car, buy a 5 to 10 year used, like a used reliable vehicle that isn't going to lose all of its value in the first 2 years, preferably with single digit interest rate on your loan for it. Those are the two biggest mistakes service members make, right? They don't contribute to their TSP at the most valuable time, which is as soon as humanly possible. And they blow their money on something like a vehicle. We all make the jokes about Mustangs, but there's a reason it's a joke, right? It's super common, and they depreciate. You buy a Mustang, 5 years later, it's worth less than 50% of what you paid for it. And you've paid more because of interest. And so now you're stuck with this thing that you might be underwater on that. Who cares?
It sits there while you're deployed and you're still paying on it and everything else.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Used cars are at a premium right now though. Holy cow, with what's going on with just,
I put 50,000 miles on my car since I bought it in 2019. And the dealership just offered me 6,000 more than I paid for it. So it's wild.
I heard that story over and over and over. I know. Yeah. Everyone's wanting my Tundra right now, but if I sell it back to them, then I go buy another one, right?
That's the problem. Yeah. And that's, even more of a reason for, because had I bought that car as a brand new car, sure, values would have gone up, but not enough to cover how much I would have, it would have gone down due to mileage.
Yeah. So you got into real estate because you wanted to build wealth, and you really took a liking to it and have done really well. But now you're also an entrepreneur. I mean, you're not that real estate guys are not entrepreneurs, but now you're running a business. You got people on the payroll.
Yep.
What's that like, being an entrepreneur and not working for the man anymore? You're running your own business. More money coming in than you thought you could achieve in the beginning. I mean, you say, oh, I need at least $5,000. Well, you're way beyond that at this point. So what does that feel like?
Yeah, I've had a few, for one, it's a roller coaster. So it is a prime example. There was a month last year where I brought in like $33,000 in income. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I looked at the other side of the report and was like, I spent 32 of it. Crap. So like it fluctuates for sure. And a lot of that's, commission stuff. So we've had some months where I'm holding my seat going, oh, crap. I joke with people that entrepreneurship, if you were to break it out, it looks like this. 1 day a week or 2 days a week of, oh my God, I love this. It's amazing. I can do whatever the heck I want. Woohoo. 2 days a week of like, oh my God, the world's ending. I'm stressed to the max. Everything's my fault and nothing's going the right way. I hope we make it. We're going to, whatever. And then there's like 1 day a week where you're just sitting around like, well, there's got to be something I should do, but I can't, like, I wish someone could just tell me what I need to do next, because I don't know what's, and it's like, that's always the day before the, oh crap, everything's falling apart day, because you're like, I don't know what to do today. And then the next day it just hits you in the face. But
yeah,
I'm getting better at it. The thing that I have found that I have struggled the most with is taking time off. Like, I am physically trying to force myself to work from home or go home, or like yesterday I'd been studying for this stupid test to get my mortgage license. And I studied for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. And then I kind of went cross-eyed, and it kind of hit me. I was like, it's like 2 p.m. I'm going to go get a massage, because I work for myself and I don't give a crap, like, whatever. But I really have struggled with letting myself, like take a day off, or
I always feel like you need to be on,
Yeah, it's so hard to shut it down. I work more now than I did in the Marine Corps.
Right.
I mean, it's fun. It doesn't feel like work. I mean, I consider, like, us talking on the podcast right now, this is me working. I'm sitting in a lazy boy chair and
it counts.
drinking Chick-fil-A, but it's fun. But I get to the end of the day and I'm like, holy crap, how'd I stay in the office past 6 again? So
yeah. I've experienced some of the same thing, and all the experts will tell you, you become more productive if you do take that time off. Your head clears out, and then when you come back, kind of start with a fresh slate, fresh perspective on things, and then you're able to see what the priorities are a little bit, because you get too much caught in the weeds. Yeah. It's hard to tell, what you should be doing next and everything else. So, well, we're getting close to the end of our time. So I'm gonna give you the last word. If you're talking to somebody that's still in the military, they might be on their way out, transitioning, looking to get into entrepreneurship, whether it be real estate or something related, what kind of advice comes to mind for somebody that's just getting started? They know they want to do something like this, but they don't really know where to go or what to do.
Yeah, the single best thing you can do is investing in yourself, right? So listen to podcasts, read books, spend some time learning about whatever subject you'd like to do. If you don't know what you want to do, then what are you passionate about? What could you talk to people about for hours? And that's probably the thing that you should focus on. There's a way to make money doing anything. So if it's video games, you can make money doing that. So whatever that is. And then once you've kind of figured that out and you started learning some more about how to do whatever that thing is, surround yourself with people who've already done it. So find people who have achieved what you want to achieve, and then hang out with them. And don't listen to the people who are going to tell you it's a bad idea, or it's risky, or no, or gripe, or complain they don't see. All the people who are going to say whatever, who haven't done what you want to do, just totally ignore their advice. Only listen to the advice of people who have already been where you want to go, and you'll be successful, right? Like, you wouldn't learn to play football by listening to a swimmer who's never played football about football. You'd listen to the coach. But for some reason, when we get into business, people are like, oh, my mom said I can't do that. Well, what's your mom do for a living? Well, she works at Chick-fil-A. Okay. Do you think your mom knows anything about running a business? I'm sure she's a wonderful lady, but she probably doesn't know anything about running a business.
Right.
So,
Great advice. Yeah. We all have probably fallen into that trap at one time or another. So
yeah.
All right, David. Well, thanks for sharing your entrepreneurial success story. Great to hear about how From Military to Millionaire is excelling out there, and keep up the good work, and look forward to seeing your future success.
Thanks, brother. And thanks for having me on the show.
All right. You bet. Hoorah.
Hoorah.
These two Marines are Oscar Mike.